away from the foreign exchange market and into another very burning economic issues, and that's the ongoing negotiations between the Nigerian government and the organized labor over the national minimum wage, which have taken a new turn. Both sides making concession in a bid to reach a compromise. The federal government, which had previously proposed the minimum wage of 60,000 naira, has now raised its offers to 62,000 naira after extensive deliberations with the organized private sector. This move comes as the organized labor, which had initially demanded a minimum wage of 494,000 naira, had adjusted its request to 250,000 naira. The latest development in the negotiations was reached after several hours of the meeting on Friday, where both parties, the federal government and the organized private sector, decided to increase their initial offer from 60,000 naira to 62,000 naira. Well, for more perspective on this, I'm being joined live via Zoom by the Director General of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Mr. Segun Ajayi Kadiri. He was part of that meeting, and of course, he should be able to bring us up to speed with some happenings. Good afternoon, DG, and thank you for joining the program.
Good afternoon, Tolu, and thank you for having me.
I think we should start with an overview of what's been happening. Yes, I know that you've been around that table, a lot of discussions on the labor side, on the private sector side, and of course on government side. Bring us up to speed with what's been happening in that room and what we expect moving forward.
Okay, so we had a tripartite committee that comprised of government, the organized labor, and the organized private sector to recommend to Mr. President what should be the minimum wage. That is the wage that the least paid worker in Nigeria that is within the bracket that is agreed in the Act should be paid. We've had more than 4 months of deliberations, and at the end of it, we were not able to agree on a figure. That is the tripartite. We only agreed on 62,000 naira government and the organized private sector, and 250,000 naira by organized labor. And so when it became almost impossible for us to reach a consensus, those recommendations were made to Mr. President on the way to being transmitted to Mr. President. I mean, so that he's able to decide. But you know that we are a tripartite, and two partners have agreed on the 62,000 naira figure. It's only organized labor that, for reasons that they have adduced, were not able to agree with us. So that's where we are in a nutshell.
What is that the position of the private sector? They are fine with this figure, because the argument in some quarters has been that there are challenges that the private sector is facing at the moment, and some would say we've not been able to break even. We've not been able to make so much profit. So where are we with regards to what's the position of the private sector in all of this? Let's move on now.
Okay. So, you know, even the tripartite, everybody spoke from the reality that they face. I don't speak for government, but what government indicated was that they didn't have the capacity to pay the least worker more than 62,000. But for us in the organized private sector, what we have indicated is that we are faced with numerous challenges that will make it impossible for us to pay the least worker 62,000. And if you really look at what has happened, 5 years ago, the minimum wage was 30,000. And so what we were offering was 100% increase. Tolu, I can assure you that there is no manufacturer who has had 100% increase in their turnover or profit either before or after tax. And so what this means is that we have had limited capacity to be able to pay. Don't forget that once you have a floor, which is the minimum wage, you have to do consequential adjustment, which will mean that your wage bill will continue to climb. As we speak, the capacity utilization for the whole of 2023 was about 55.1%, which means that we barely produce at half of our installed capacity. And once you look at the products that we made but we are not able to sell, it's above 1 trillion for the period, for the last 12 months. That's the year 2023. You also have the fact that the manufacturing sector actually grew by just 1.40%. So our fortunes have not improved over what we've had. And so it will be difficult for us to take much more than that. So we spoke from the reality that we face, the current challenges that we face, which everybody knows. I mean, the foreign exchange, what has happened to the foreign exchange regime, you know, the unprecedented downturn in consumer purchases. We've had the interest rate hit the roof. It's now anywhere between 35 to 40%. We've had insecurity severely limiting our access to our raw materials and logistics and sales of our product, and quite a number of challenges. The infrastructure challenge, the recent increase in cost of electricity, more than 250%. So when you are confronted with this situation, it is difficult for you to negotiate and then increase wages beyond what is possible for you to sell. And don't also forget that we have more than 75% of our members operate in the small and medium scale segment. So, and they have very low margins. So it will be very difficult for them to pay these wages and the consequential adjustment that will be done, and then to be able to remain in business. And what should not be suggested is that you start to borrow money to pay wages, or you pay wages and then you are not able to break even or to make profit. I mean, everybody is in business to make profit, and you need to be able to guarantee that before you can sustain your business.
Now, even the states are now